Hey guys, welcome to the Dream Lab. I'm John Thomas, and we're getting ready to hear a dream. So who has a dream that they'd like to share? Gail, come on up.
The dream I had was my husband and I were driving, and we get to a place in the road, and we see this enormous tornado. Enormous. You can't see one end to the next. And it's brown. And you can see the sun still shining through it. And so I thought, this thing is huge, but at least you can still see the sun. Next scene, kind of like a detour off the road. We have to go pick up our kids at daycare. Our kids have never been at daycare. But in my dream, we had to go pick up the kids at daycare. And I get there and I'm waiting for them at this like countertop place. And my older daughter was around 9 at the time. And I just remember thinking in my dream, I was having some anxiety in the dream and kind of nervous about it, going, she's so small, she's so vulnerable. And I just kept thinking of this. And then I look and it's this wrought iron that's been painted white. And I look at the wrought iron and it's wrought iron. So I think it's really strong. It's painted white. And I hear somehow take a closer look. So I took a closer look and it was actually aspen saplings. And they were so close together that then I hear they're so close together that they're as strong as wrought iron. And so we get the kids and we get back on the road. And so now it's bright, bright, bright and shiny. Blue sky, yellow sun, green grass. And we're in our car with the girls and another person who is faceless. And it's the car from when we first got married. But we're with, but we're with our kids at this time. And so we're driving the car and we are headed back to our house. And I think, John, maybe we should pull over because we could get out of the car and get to the house undetected.
Now, for everybody, for those watching, John is her husband.
Yes.
So I know I'm John,
Yeah.
but John is also her husband.
Yeah.
So it wasn't me in the dream.
Right.
Just clarify, because you might mess it up if you try to put
Right.
So,
Sorry. Yeah, right.
No.
And so I said we should pull over because we could get to the house undetected. Because at this point, we had to get to the house undetected. And so we're like, okay. So John and I and the girls and this person start walking up the hill. And there's a doorway on the road in a door frame. The shoulders are very wide on this road. But there's this door in a frame and it's painted brown with a brass handle. And so you could easily go around the door. But we go through the door. We get to the top of the hill and it is lined with these people in Muslim clothing. And the only reason it was almost cartoonish, it was almost like you would, like Sinbad kind of clothing with turbans and vests and balloony pants, And when they see us, we get to the top of the hill and they see us and they're all the way across and they raise a war cry and they hold up machetes and swords and they see us and they start screaming and they start running towards us in attack. And I tell John, get back to the car because he could get to the car faster. And I'll get to the kids. You come, I'll grab the kids. You get the car and come get us. And that's it.
Okay. So let's make sure we've got this right. So it starts out, you are driving down the road and there's this huge brown tornado as far as you can see. Just huge brown tornado, but you can still see the sun shining through it. And you've got to avoid it. So you take a detour, and the detour is to pick up your kids. And you go to a daycare. When you had this dream, your daughter was 9, and she's 9 in the dream. Okay. So you go to the daycare, which they don't normally at daycare, but you go to the daycare to pick them up, and you're thinking, wait, she's so young, she's so small, she's vulnerable. Like, is she protected here? Is this safe? And so you see this fence and it looks like it's wrought iron that is covered with white. And you hear a voice that says, look closer. And so you go and you look closer and you realize that it's actually birch saplings? Aspen saplings. Birch is also white, but aspen saplings. Aspen saplings, but they're so tight together, that they're as strong as wrought iron. Next thing, you're back in the car. It's actually the car that you had when you first got married,
Mhm.
but you're with your kids, now 9 years old, so this is much later. And you're driving, and there's somebody else that's in the car with your family that is a faceless person, a faceless man that's with you. And you know you need to stop the car and get out and get to your house without being seen. So you're going through a field to be able to do that. And you get to this road, and in the road, there's a door with a door frame, and it's a brown wood door, and it's got a brass door handle. And instead of walking around it, which could have been just as easy, you walk through it, you go through the door, and you keep on walking. You're going up a hill, and as you're going up the hill, you see at the top all of these people that are dressed in very traditional Muslim garb. They got the turbans, they got the blousey pants, they've got the vests, and they see you, and now you've been seen. And they begin to raise a war cry, lift up the machetes and the swords, and they're rushing at you. You look at John and you say, go get the car, I'll get the kids, because you know he can get to the car faster, and he's going to come and pick you up. And that's when the dream ends.
Yep.
Okay, very good. So, fun dream. Some key things. How old is your daughter now?
15.
15. So she had this dream 6 years ago. So that's one of the things. So this is something that was going on 6 years ago in their life. So that's one of the pieces that'll be helpful for you. So go ahead and pause your video, come up with a title for the dream, and we'll make sure we actually come up with the title here in the lab. And we forgot last time, but it's been a month, so you've probably forgotten, but come up with a title for your dream. Figure out your focuses, your sub-focuses, your details, and then write out your interpretation. Once you're ready, go ahead and start the video again, and we'll let you know what we got here at the lab. And we turned the cameras off, so I'm not sure if you guys caught this piece, but she was sharing that just recently, so this dream happened 6 years ago, but just recently, 6 months ago, she is driving down a road here in Texas, and she's on that exact road that was in the dream that she had never seen before in her life. So there was nothing from before that would tie that in, that would make her think of that. And so that timing, and in that moment, she knew this is now. That dream, this is the season that we're in right now. So now is the cliffhanger. Not when she had the dream, now. And so that piece was letting that timing know this is where you're at right now. Yeah. So fun. And here's another thing that you're going to find in dreams. It's very, very common. Is when you have dreams. The one we did last month where there was a journey driving down the road and seeing this happen and that happen and being in this place and that place. This one where you're driving down the road, you're going on a journey. Usually it's talking about a season of life. It's a season, it's the journey, the going through time. And so that journey, look for journeys when people are like they're walking down the road and this happens and then they walk a little bit further and this happens, or they're driving and then this happens and driving, then that happens. It's usually talking about movement of time. It's about a season that they're in. So that's one of those clues that you can pay attention to, and it's a good starting point to begin to ask Holy Spirit, okay, now is that the case in this particular dream, which I think that it is. So let's diagram it and let's see where we're at, see where your diagram matches up. So what are we going to title this one? The light shines through. That gives you a lot of hope, right? I really can spell. All right, and who or what is our focus? The dreamer. And let's do this. Let's do very similar because we've got different pieces. Let's start with the first piece. So what was the first piece? Tornado. So big brown tornado. I'm just going to write tornado. That's a sub-focus. And then the sun. The fact that they can see the sun shining through, that's a detail. And they're in a car. Now, you could put the car as the sub-focus and the tornado as a detail, or you could put the tornado either way, tornado is a little bit more important to the plot of the dream. That's why I put that first, even though they were in the car. And so the car is actually more a detail off the dreamer than it is the tornado. So my diagram is not perfect, but it gets you the right idea. Anything else that's important about that?
It was the car that currently.
Yeah, so the car is a car that they had at the time of the dream. So that was current. So that's key because that contrasts with the car later. So it's a different car. So that is going to be key. It helps you to understand what that was talking about, and there's a nuance of understanding there. So, and then our next piece. So they had to take a detour to go to daycare to pick up the kids. So the daycare is a sub-focus, and the girls, the two girls, their two children, that's a detail. That actually is LS, not K, but you'll have to look closely to be sure. What else do we have? The saplings, the fence and the saplings. So I'm going to put fence, saplings. And it was a white wrought iron fence. But when she looked closer, it's actually a bunch of aspen saplings. But it's as strong as a wrought iron fence because they're so close together. So the close is an important, and you don't have to write that on there, but it's key to understanding what that actually means. So that'll be helpful. All right. Anything else important in that scene? All right. Then our next scene. So we've got a car.
It's their first car.
And it's their car when they're first married. That is it. So first married. Okay. That's a sub-focus. What else? It's bright and sunny. And I'll just put sunny and that'll remember everything is just full, bright, great colors. What else?
The door.
So
They're in a car.
So now they're trying to get somewhere unseen. So home unseen. Because they get out of the car, now they're walking. And as they're walking, they come to a road, and there's a door in the road. So, the problem with this, all these details have meaning. How much do you need to put in your diagram? You almost, there's keys that are there that's helpful. The road is most important, but that door, it's so unique in the dream, it becomes key because of the meaning of it. But let's put road and door together just to make it simplify your diagram. Because part of the thing with the diagram, just the way the human brain works, once you get too many bubbles on there, too many items on there, it actually causes more confusion than clarification. And the whole point of the diagram is to clarify. So if you get too many bubbles on there, you get that overwhelming feeling. Whenever that happens, start your diagram over. Just start on a new piece of page and try to figure out how few bubbles you can put on there, how few elements you can put on there. I call them bubbles, bubble diagram. All right, so that's a helpful little tip for you. And then one other key thing, the enemy, yeah. Yes, the enemy. Now, it's very interesting how the element that God used in this dream, right, very clearly signified as Muslim to the dreamer. And so that's key to understanding that. And so the element is Muslim, the interpretation is the enemy. And this gives us a great opportunity to talk about one of the keys with dreams. You can't change a dream because people don't like it. And so you want to communicate clearly the dream. God uses a symbol for that dreamer because that dreamer understands it. Now, we're making this dream pretty broad. And so we've got people all over the world that are going to be watching this, and possibly some of you are Muslim. This is an element. God can use a picture of a man to talk about authority and also abuse for someone. It's not because all men are bad. It's because that's what it means to that dreamer. And this is a very specific thing in the culture, one, in America since 9/11, and being in that particular culture. And then two, the reason why was it Muslim? Why wasn't it a culture issue? Meaning, why wasn't an Arab, or why wasn't it an Indian person, or why was it a religious issue? Because it's pointing this is a spirit that's being revealed. So it's not about individuals and people. It's about the spirit that's behind that thing that is anti-Christ. It's against Christ, and it has a false image of God. And so those are the keys that's there in the violence that is related to the origins and the true following of the Muslim faith, which is a violent religion. So that is the reason why God would use that element. You got to understand all of that. You don't have to say all of that when you're interpreting it, but you do want to clarify this is talking about a spirit that's behind this so that the person understands. So that'll be helpful in how you say it, because depending on your context, you may, it's the other people that overhear. It may not be safe if you're out in an outreach setting for you to be as clear as that. But the likelihood is God wouldn't give you a dream to interpret in that type of a setting. And so if you're on the streets of, Kuwait or in Saudi Arabia or someplace like that, you're probably not going to run into a dream like this where that's going to be an issue. God will give you the dream that you need, that you're going to be able to interpret in the right way, in the right place. And so you'll find the right dreams coming up. This is a great teaching tool for us, which is one of the reasons why we get it here at the lab, because it helps you to understand that concept. So how did you guys put that together? Let's get some interpretations or some of those pieces, or do we want to walk through what some of this means first? Okay, let's start with tornado. What would a tornado mean?
Storm.
A storm, a difficult time period. So time of difficulty. A car, it just means they're going someplace. I mean, sometimes it's talking about work, sometimes it's talking about ministry. This is about their family going someplace. And so it's not about a family ministry, and it's not about the whole family being in work together. It was about the journey that they were on. So this was their current, that right in front of them, there was some difficulty, but there was also the sun. What's sun represent?
Sun, S-O-N, play on.
S-O-N. And let's clarify, let's dial that in a little bit more specifically for this one. What would it be talking about?
Shining through those circumstances.
Light, illumination, revelation. So even in the midst of difficulty, there's going to be revelation. Yeah, Jesus is going to be speaking. There's going to be, the word is going to be released. Yeah. Kids in daycare. Now, here's one of the things you got to think about, because you may be familiar. Maybe your kids go to daycare all the time. This dreamer has never put their kids in daycare. Not that it's a bad thing, not that they think it's a bad thing. They've just never done it. So there's a reason why God would use that element for this dreamer, and it's going to be key to that. What happens in a daycare? Someone else is taking care of your kids. You're not directly involved in what's happening with your children. And that's the key, right? That there's going to come a time where there's things happening with their kids that's out of their control, and there's going to be some concern. I'm concerned, and especially over my oldest. And then God begins to speak. And one of the key things in this dream is I heard a voice. Look closer. I heard a voice. It's as strong as that revelation that was coming in. Now, this may be a layer on top of the last scene, right? Because you have difficulty, confusion, but light shining through. And hey, I'm concerned for my kids, and yet clear revelation, and there's light that's coming through. So one of the things is recognizing that they were so close together, and that's why there was strength. And so recognizing the unity in the family is the strength for the children, and being able to see that. And so that's what that whole piece is about. Unity is strength. And that's why I said having close in there is important, because of that piece, because that was the key thing that she needed to know. Yes, speak loudly so we can hear.
There's also a really cute thing that God did here with the picture message, and that is these cute little aspen saplings, because they came from Colorado. And so
Yeah.
you think that they're rooted in Colorado, but the little Colorados came with you on the journey, and they're saplings, and they're so strong because they're together. They're here with you, and they're strong here.
Yes. Yeah, and this is another piece that you don't have to know this to interpret the dream. And so some of you may have caught this, some of you may have not. But knowing some natural knowledge, about 6 years ago, about the time of this dream, is about the time you guys moved to Texas. So this dream was telling them about the season that they were going to be in Texas, and they're currently on that road. So that's the nice little key. Now, you don't have to know that to be able to give the dreamer an interpretation. But it's helpful to understand, because for some of you, that's going to confirm what you are getting for your interpretation. So the next piece, why is it the car that they had when they were first married? I think that what this is saying is what's going to carry them forward is their marriage. Right? Because there was that time period. I mean, your honeymoon time period, you're first married. There's something that happens. There's that uniting that happens. What's going to carry them into this next season is their marriage, the strength of their marriage. And that's why it was key. It wasn't the car that she had before they got married. It wasn't the first car that she ever had. It was the car they first had when they first got married. It was a reminder of that time, that covenant, and that time that they had. That's what's going to carry them forward in this season. So, and that's why they were in the car for that first portion, right? Because that's the marriage is going to be key to carrying them forward. So, getting home unseen. Now, if you're trying to get somewhere and you're trying not to be seen, what is the assumption that you're going to be making? That there's danger, that there's an enemy. Who don't you want to get seen? So recognizing that there's an enemy and they're trying to avoid conflict. They're trying to avoid attack. And so that's the whole thing of trying to get home unseen. We want to get to a safe place. We want to make sure that we get safe, and we understand that we're in a place where there's a lot of spiritual warfare. Are we going to be able to get through this without the spiritual warfare? Now, what's going on with them? What was unique about this scene that was different from all the other scenes? Someone's in the car with them, right? You've got a nameless, faceless person that's in the car with them. Nameless, faceless person is often some type of heavenly creature, angelic being, could be the Lord, could be an angel from the Lord. Either way, it's letting them know that heaven is with them in this journey and doesn't stay in the car, doesn't disappear in the attack. He's with them in the journey. So the road that they're on is the path. And the path that they were taking in Texas, because it was a road in Texas and a specific road that was in Texas. And then that's the other piece. And I started with this. It had to be that specific road because it was going to let them know the timing. Now, as they're on this road, what do they see? Door. What could a door represent? An opportunity. All right, so there's going to be an opportunity that they're going to walk through, they're not going to avoid. They're not going to go around it. They're going to walk through this opportunity, and they're going to continue down that path. Now, Gail, let me clarify this with you since this is your dream. When I heard you say the dream, what I understood is you went through that door and then you continued up the hill and then you saw the enemy. So it wasn't as soon as you got through the door. There was more of a journey after. So one of the things you have to be careful with, you don't want to make the door as the cause for the enemy. So that's one of the things you've got to be careful with. It's just saying that they're going to be on a path. There's going to be an opportunity in front of them. They're going to take it. They're going to walk through that opportunity. Right? And they're still trying to avoid warfare, but they're not going to be able to avoid warfare. The warfare is coming. Warfare is coming. And the key is her husband doing what her husband's called to do and her taking care of the kids. And that's how they're going to be safe in the midst of it because God is with them. So lots of pieces. Yes, ma'am.
Another detail you don't have, it doesn't change the dream, but another detail that we talked about was that when the enemy sounded their war cry, they lifted up swords, not like guns or bombs.
Swords and machetes. Right, which is one of the keys. This attack that's coming, a spiritual attack is coming, it's going to be a lot of words. That's why it's blades. Blades usually represent words, and you get that throughout Scripture, from the Proverbs to Hebrews to the Word of God. That key. So words are key. That's how the enemy is going to attack, is through accusations and what people say. Yeah. So who wants to put this all together for him?
So at the beginning, so you're it's in a new place, which the dream doesn't say that, but I know y'all. So you're on a new place, and there's this big tornado. There's a lot going. There's a storm, but the light's shining through. I just felt like, the Lord's with you in this. And the second piece, I just felt like, there was concern for your children, especially when they're beyond your care. They're not in your care. They're out beyond that. And but they're strong. The leadership that's within them, the trees that they are, the representation that their leadership skills are already mature, and they're strong. And then when you're in the car, I felt like it was, heavenly, or I felt like it was the Lord with you in the midst of where you're going on the path. And there's a new opportunity that you go through the doorway, and you go up over the hill, and you do see the attack from the enemy. But I love that the attack, that they're swords, they're not guns. So they're small, they're words, they're accusations. But I love that y'all you're doing life, you're doing what you're supposed to be, John, you're doing what you're called to do, and you're running to get the car, and you're taking care of the family, Gail. And I feel like the Lord is with you, and this is just, He's showing you where your journey and where you are, and
yeah, very good. Yay. So, do you guys share, if I share just a little bit of context and application and the interpretation? So, just knowing you guys in the season you're going through, when you guys moved here, you recognized that there was going to be a swirl of activity and it wasn't all going to be good, but you knew that God had led you into the midst of difficulty. And there was a season where your biggest concern is, how are the kids going to be able to handle everything that's going on? Because there's stuff that's happening that's outside of our control. I just want to make sure that they're safe. They're so small. They're vulnerable. But there was already strength within them. And white, I mean, that's a beautiful picture of the purity and the righteousness and that strength. They're going to be fine. And the season that you're going through, it forced you guys to come back together. in a way that you haven't for a long time. And it strengthened your marriage. And there was a door that was right in front of you. You had to take that door and take on streams. And you walk that path, and it put you into the place of warfare. But the Lord was with you throughout it all, and he hasn't stopped being with you. It's a beautiful dream. For those of you that don't know, Gail's husband, John, led streams for a period of time. He came on staff just before John Paul passed away, and he helped streams to be able to transition that time period by being at the helm. And so I thought that door was that, because it was just right in their path. It was just on the road right in front of them, and they just walked through it. And yet God was with them the whole time. So I love how sometimes dreams are just so specific, but they're not supposed to be understood until they're supposed to be understood. And when you get that dream and you know that there's something on it and you don't quite understand it, you just hold on to it, because at the right time, that dream will come out and it'll be exactly what's needed in the right time. And just trust the Lord to open it up and to pull it back, because he will bring it at the right time. And you'll get the understanding when you need to, as long as you don't stop pursuing. And that's the key. That's because the other side of this, because you got a road, and on the road there's two ditches. It's on either side. One side we strive and we struggle until we get an interpretation of every dream, and we drive ourselves and everybody else crazy. On the other side of it is we just ignore, and well, if God wants to tell me the interpretation, he'll tell me. And we are lackadaisical about it, and there's a balance between those two. And if we can hold on to that balance, we'll find ourselves getting the revelation when we need it. We're not trying to force God's hand, but we're hungry and we're pursuing in the midst. And so we're pursuing relationship, and we're pursuing understanding, and we're asking him to teach us and to show us what it is that he's saying. And we don't just ignore, but there are times to let things realize that this is a season thing. I'm not getting any revelation on this. And so, Lord, I'm going to hold on to this, and I'm going to look at it periodically, and at the right time, bring it back, because I want to know what you're saying. And he'll bring it in the right season. And maybe it's because you actually walk into a portion of the dream and you're like, oh, that dream, I need to go find it. And you'll find it, and it opens up. Or sometimes it just, because it comes back to your spirit and you just know. One of the things I like to do is I'll periodically just go through old dreams. Funny story. I had a few people over at my house, and some people that I was mentoring, and they're like, I want to, I would love to hear what some of your dreams were 10 years ago. And so I went and grabbed one of my dream journals, and it was a dream journal from when I first moved up to Streams. So 2004, 2005. Opened up to a random page, handed it to them, and they read the dream. And it described everything from that moment until the moment that we were in when we interpreted the dream. And it was one of those dreams I hadn't interpreted yet, but it just walks through. And it was one of those path dreams. And it just, boom, boom, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And I'm like, wait a second, that all happened. It was so clear, but it was at the right time. And I got the understanding. I've done outreaches where I had somebody that came up to me and they're like, I've had this dream for 17 years and I keep on asking people to interpret this dream and none of the interpretations I get make sense. It's just, they're not right. And interpreted the dream, and it was exactly the season that they were going through right then. It's 17 years, and they were pursuing interpretation. Now, this wasn't even a believer, but they were pursuing interpretation because they knew there was something there. And 17 years later, they get the dream and they realize, and now I can look at this person and say, you know what? The season that you're going through right now that's so hard and so difficult that you don't understand, God knew about it 17 years ago and was already talking to you about that season. He's going to get you through that season. And it just touched a place of their heart because they didn't need to know it then. They needed to know it when they got the interpretation. So trust God in those seasons, and you'll know when you need to know as long as you're pursuing for the answer. Amen? Well, bless you guys. Thanks for joining us at the lab, and we will see you next time.